And that has obviously fundamentally been always lesser than the affluent segment, but they are still spending, even though that they are having a higher cost of living coming through the increased cost on groceries and automotive. They are not letting go of spending on air and vacation. Now, we're going to see other markets where this is going to slightly change. And because, again, the budgets are tight. But what you have here is you have fundamental still that backlog from COVID of a segment out there which has spend capabilities, which is affluent enough and will spend. And let's look at some of these spend data that we have. So fundamentally, I'm looking here at some of the outbound spend. Countries which are spending abroad, Australians, Japanese, Singaporeans, and Thais I took here, and what they're spending on. Carolyn mentioned a lot on experience, and you can see coming out of COVID 2022, there was still that backlog on luxury spend. People are still retail therapying and buying a lot of things. And you can start seeing how that red line is fundamentally jumping up. Very strong in Thailand, very strong in Singapore, which has always been a strong luxury retail market type of a travel behavior. Obviously also coming out of Australia, which is an outdoor society. And there's this Japan, which is below average. And I want to dive into that because you're going to see what that means for your destination. Why are Japanese spending less? And coming out of COVID, beginning of 2023, that has not even become any better. There's a currency issue that we want to talk here about. So while some markets are benefiting from a strong currency or no change in their currency valuation, the Japanese market is hugely hit by the fact of that. And you're going to see that in my next slide, how introverted the Japanese market now is in terms of spending at home. It has also been a market where cost of living has increased. Look at the right side, pre-COVID versus post-COVID. The Japanese market has been hit heavily by the inflation of everyday goods, of groceries, of those type of cost of living, which you cannot, avoid. But if you look at the next slide, when it comes down to their behavior in spending for travel, they're at the pars where they were behaving before, in slightly less, but affluent and mass are at the par. They're spending domestically. They're staying at home because they're having less budgets. Their currency is weak going abroad. They are staying at home. So if that was one of your core corridors, which has been in the past a driver for some of your more affluent consumer spending in your market, you got to start to tailor it down for 2024 and 2025 because you need to look at the market economics, and currency is one of the strongest ones. I'm Swiss by origin. We've got one of the strongest currencies right now in Europe. The dollar against the Swiss franc or the euro against the Swiss franc has dramatically decreased. Hence, it's become so expensive for many to do what Carolyn has projected. Look at experiences. And hence, again, the rail is one of those largest items on experience, and the Swiss rail system going through the Alps is one of those things. But if you can't pay for it anymore because it's become so expensive, you got to start to substitute it with other activities. So let's talk about some of those experiences. And here we are. Again, I brought you some markets, how you can really see how experiences has overtaken the overall behavior last year. And this is basically just people spending on experiences. And when we look at experiences, there's obviously multiple different experiences. There are the outdoor activities, like she's shown in her travel segments, of people wanting to go out and adventure and hike. There's the experiences around events. There's experiences around, going and dining. So dining is still a growing element, and you see that in the red curve. You have there the yellow curve being basically the entertainment experiences. And this is where you really start seeing areas where a lot of entertainment, theme parks, and outdoor activities or indoor entertainment are available. These have been dramatically growing. Now, somebody's going to ask me, what is this bump in Singapore all about? And what is this bump, in Thailand? Now, I looked at the bump in Singapore, and what happened in 2023 that spiked that bump in Singapore were fundamentally two things. One was the announcement of a couple of very key concerts coming to Singapore, Coldplay and Taylor Swift. And the other one was the F1. So you can see how people are buying tickets online for those events once these events come online. And because these are very short time windows to buy these tickets, you see these spikes going up and down. Singapore is therefore not necessarily known as an entertainment event-based city, but it's becoming that now. And hence you can start seeing how the Singapore Tourism Board is bringing more of these type of activities in, and how that is driving consumer awareness to come to Singapore and do these and visit these type of events.